A note before we begin. There is nothing here you need to hold on to. No lesson you must remember in the morning. No argument you have to follow to its end. Let the words move past you the way a slow river moves past a person sitting on the bank. You may listen closely, or you may let your attention loosen and drift. And either way, you will have done this correctly. Your only task tonight is to rest. We are going to spend these hours with one man and one difficult, beautiful idea. The man is Friedrich Nietzsche, who slept badly for most of his life and thought more honestly about suffering than almost anyone before him. The idea is his strange question about whether you would be willing to live your life again exactly as it was an endless number of times. It sounds, at first, like a heavy thing to carry into sleep, but stay with it softly, and it turns into something closer to peace. Breathe out slowly. Let your shoulders come down from where they have been all day. There is no hurry now. There is only the night and a quiet voice and a very old question that turns out to be gentler than it seems. Chapter 1. The weight you carried to bed tonight. Somewhere in the last hour, as the house went quiet and the lights went down, a certain kind of thought may have come to visit you. It is a thought that waits until we are still, because it cannot be heard over the noise of the day. It sounds something like this: I'm not sure this is the life I would have chosen. Almost everyone knows this visitor. It does not always announce itself so plainly. Sometimes it arrives as a small ache when you remember a decision you made 20 years ago. Sometimes it is the memory of a person you were unkind to, or a door you did not walk through, or a version of yourself you can still picture clearly, the one who was going to do all the things you never did. In the dark, these pieces gather, and a quiet voice asks whether, given the chance, you would take this exact life again. Tonight, we are not going to argue you out of that feeling. That would be a kind of lie, and you are too tired for lies. Instead, we are going to walk slowly around it, the way you might walk around a large stone in a field, looking at it from every side, until it becomes less frightening, simply because you have seen all of it. The feeling that your life should have gone otherwise is one of the oldest feelings there is. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are awake to your own existence, that you can imagine other paths, that you are the kind of creature who measures what is against what might have been. An animal does not lie awake regretting. Only a being who can picture a different life can grieve the one it has. Your regret, in other words, is the shadow cast by your imagination. It is the price of being able to dream at all. So, let us begin there with a small act of kindness toward yourself. Whatever you carried into this bed tonight, the disappointments, the roads not taken, the sense that time has moved faster than you did, set it down beside you for now, not away, just down. We will pick it up again, together, and look at it in a light that a certain sleepless philosopher spent his whole life learning to see by. Chapter 2. A man who could not sleep either. It will help to know something about the man whose thoughts will keep us company tonight, because he was not a distant marble figure. He was a person who suffered in a body that rarely let him rest, and everything he wrote was written against that background of pain. Friedrich Nietzsche was born in a small German village in the autumn of 1844, the son of a Lutheran pastor who died when the boy was only 4. He grew up in a house full of women, his mother, his sister, his grandmother, his aunts, a quiet and serious child who loved music and words. He was brilliant in school, so brilliant that he became a professor of classical languages at the University of Basel at the astonishing age of 24, before he had even finished his doctorate. It looked, for a moment, like the beginning of a long and comfortable academic life. But his body had other plans. From his mid-20s onward, Nietzsche was tormented by illness that no doctor of his time could name or cure. He suffered blinding migraines that could last for days, leaving him vomiting in a darkened room, unable to read or write or bear the light. His eyesight failed him steadily. His stomach rebelled against food. And sleep, that simple mercy the rest of us often take for granted, came to him only in broken pieces, if it came at all. He dosed himself with sedatives that left him foggy. He moved from town to town across Europe, chasing climates that might ease his head, a wandering invalid with a suitcase of books. Hold this picture gently as we go. When Nietzsche wrote his great and difficult praise of life, he was not writing from a mountaintop of good fortune. He was writing from inside a body that gave him every reason to curse his existence. He knew pain the way you know an old acquaintance, and that is precisely why his eventual yes to life carries such weight. It is easy to bless a life that has been kind to you. It is a far rarer and stranger thing to bless a life that has hurt you, and to mean it. That is the country we are traveling toward tonight, slowly, in no hurry at all. Chapter 3. The Lake, the Pyramid Rock, and the Great Thought. In the summer of 1881, Nietzsche was staying in a small village in the Swiss Alps called Sils Maria, tucked between 2 clear lakes and ringed by mountains. He had found that the high, cool air soothed his head a little, and he had fallen into the only rhythm that gave him relief. Long walks, hour after hour, alone with his notebook, the world reduced to the sound of his own footsteps and the wind through the pines. He was walking that August along the shore of the lake at Silvaplana when he came to a great pyramid-shaped rock that rose beside the path. Later he would remember the exact spot and mark it because something happened to him there that he described as the highest and heaviest thought he ever had. It arrived, he said, all at once, the way a wave arrives. He wrote a few words on a sheet of paper and added a note beneath them, 6,000 feet beyond man and time. The thought that came to him by the rock was this: what if this life, the one you are living now, down to its smallest detail, is not lived only once? What if you will live it again and again, an infinite number of times, with nothing added and nothing taken away? The same joys and the same sorrows, the same mistakes, the same faces, the same aching afternoons and quiet triumphs, returning forever in an endless circle. He called it the eternal recurrence, and for the rest of his working life he circled back to it, unable to leave it alone, convinced that it was the most important thing he had to say. He would build his strangest and most beautiful book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, around it. He believed that this single idea, truly absorbed, could either crush a person or set them free, and that which of the two it did revealed everything about the state of their soul. We will spend much of tonight with this thought, turning it slowly. But notice already how it changes the question you brought to bed. You came in asking whether you would choose this life again if you could. Nietzsche does something bolder. He asks you to imagine that the choice has already been made, that you will live it again whether you consent or not, forever, and then he watches your face to see what you do. Do not answer yet. Just let the rock and the lake and the wind hold the question for a while. Chapter 4. The Demon in the Doorway. Nietzsche gave the thought its clearest and most haunting form in a book called The Gay Science. In a short passage he titled The Heaviest Weight. He asks you to imagine a scene, and it is worth entering it slowly, the way you would enter a dream. Picture your loneliest loneliness. Some night, the emptiest and quietest night of your life, when even the house seems to be holding its breath. And into that solitude, a demon creeps after you and speaks. This life, the demon says, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more, and countless times more, and there will be nothing new in it. Every pain and every joy, every thought and sigh, everything unspeakably small and great, all of it will return to you, all in the same order, this very spider and this moonlight between the trees, and this very moment, and I myself. The eternal hourglass of existence is turned over again and again, and you with it, a speck of dust. Then the demon falls silent and waits. Nietzsche asks, what would you do? Would you throw yourself down and grind your teeth and curse the demon who spoke this way? That would be one answer, and an honest one. Or is it possible that you have known, even once, a moment so full that you would answer differently, a moment after which you could say to the demon, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? That is the whole test. Not whether the idea is scientifically true, but what it does to you when you take it seriously. The demon is not really asking about physics. The demon is asking about your relationship to your own life. If the thought of living it all again fills you with dread, then somewhere you are at war with your existence. If the thought could ever, even in your best hours, fill you with something like gratitude, then you have found a peace that most people spend their whole lives without. Do not worry tonight about passing the test. Almost no one passes it on the first hearing, and Nietzsche knew that. He did not expect you to love the whole of your life at once, tonight, in the dark. He only wanted to plant the question so that it could grow slowly over years into a different way of standing inside your own days. For now, it is enough to have met the demon in the doorway and to have neither fled nor lied. Rest a moment here. Chapter 5. What eternal recurrence actually means. Let us slow down and be clear about the idea itself, because it is often misunderstood, and understanding it gently will let you rest more easily with it. The eternal recurrence is not the same as reincarnation. In reincarnation, you return as someone else, a new person with a new life, carrying perhaps some faint echo of the old. That is not what Nietzsche means. He means the return of this exact life, yours, the same one, identical in every detail, with no memory of the previous rounds and no chance to change a single thing. You would not know it was happening. From the inside, each return would feel like the only time. The circle is perfect and seamless. Nor is it a promise of heaven or a threat of hell. There is no judge at the end weighing your deeds, no reward for the good and punishment for the wicked. There is only the life itself coming back. This is what makes the thought so strange and so pure. It removes every external reason to live well. You are not being asked to earn anything or avoid anything. You are simply being shown your life laid out in full and asked how you feel about the whole of it. Scholars have argued for over a century about whether Nietzsche believed the recurrence was literally true, a fact about the universe, or whether he meant it as a thought experiment, a kind of mirror held up to the soul. He sometimes sketched arguments for its literal truth in his private notebooks, imagining a finite amount of energy in an infinite stretch of time which might force every arrangement of matter to repeat. But those arguments are shaky, and he never published them. What he did publish, again and again, was the demon and the question. So it is fair to receive the idea as he most powerfully offered it, not as a cosmology to be proven, but as a test to be felt. And here is the quiet beauty of taking it that way. You do not have to believe in eternal recurrence for it to work on you. You only have to be willing to imagine it honestly. The moment you truly picture living this exact day again forever, something shifts. The trivial complaints fall away. The question of what actually matters to you rises up on its own. That is the gift hidden inside the heaviest weight. It sorts your life for you gently into what you could bless and what you are still fighting. Chapter 6. Not a physics, but a test of the heart. There is an old and useful distinction between two kinds of questions. Some questions ask about the world out there. How far is the moon? How old is the mountain? How many stars are in the sky? Other questions ask about the person doing the asking. What do you love? What can you bear? What would you die for? The eternal recurrence looks like the first kind of question, but is really the second. Imagine two people hearing the demon's words on the same night, in the same city, under the same moon. The first person feels a wave of horror to live it all again. The failures, the humiliations, the long grey stretches of boredom, the loss, he would do anything to escape it. The second person feels something more complicated, a kind of trembling. And then, unexpectedly, a warmth. Yes, even the hard parts, even the grief, because the grief was the shape of a love. And she would not trade the love to be spared the grief. Nothing about their two lives needs to be different for them to answer so differently. They might have suffered equally. The difference is not in what happened to them, but in how they now stand toward what happened. And this is the deepest thing the test reveals, that our peace does not depend on having lived a charmed life, but on our relationship to the life we actually lived. Two people can carry the same wound. One is defined by it, and one is deepened by it. The recurrence asks which you are becoming. This is why Nietzsche called the thought both the heaviest weight and, in the same breath, something that could transform you. It is heavy because it will not let you lie about how you feel toward your existence. And it is transforming because once you feel the weight, you begin, almost without deciding to live in a way you could say yes to. You start, quietly, to prefer the choices you would be willing to repeat. You become a little more careful with your days, not out of fear of judgment, but out of a new tenderness toward a life you might have to live forever. Let that settle. Nothing is required of you tonight. The test is not a task. It is only a light, and you are lying down inside it. Chapter 7. The first honest reaction is horror. If your first reaction to the demon's question was to recoil, you are in good and ancient company, and it is important that we honor that reaction rather than rush past it. To live this life again, unchanged, forever, is a genuinely frightening prospect the first time you take it seriously. We spend so much of our inner lives editing. We revise the past in our imagination, giving the sharp word back, taking the better job, saying yes to the person we let go, or no to the one we should have. This constant private editing is how many of us make our peace with what happened, not by accepting it, but by quietly rewriting it in the theater of the mind. The recurrence forbids the editing. It hands you the unedited reel and says, this, exactly this, forever. Nietzsche did not think this horror was a weakness. He thought it was the necessary starting point. You cannot move through a feeling you refuse to have. If you pretend you would happily live it all again while some part of you is screaming, you have not passed the test, you have only silenced the witness. The path he is pointing to runs directly through the horror, not around it. So let yourself feel it, here, safely, in the dark. There are parts of your life you would give a great deal never to repeat. Name them, if you like, quietly. The years you lost, the people who hurt you or whom you hurt, the illness, the failure, the long night you thought would not end. It is honest to shudder at the thought of living those again. That shudder is not the end of the story. It is the raw material of everything that follows. Because here is what Nietzsche noticed, and what we will follow slowly through the coming hours. The wish to erase the worst parts of your life is also, secretly, a wish to erase yourself. The hard passages are not sitting apart from who you are. Like stones you could remove from a bag, they are woven into you. The person lying here tonight, with your particular tenderness and depth and understanding, is the person those hard passages made. To wish them gone is to wish this self gone. And that is a stranger, sadder wish than it first appears. we will spend a long time and great gentleness undoing it. Chapter 8. Why we wish for a different life. Before we can learn to say yes to our own life, it helps to understand, without blame, why we so often say no. The wish for a different life is not one feeling, but many, braided together, and naming the strands loosens the knot. Some of the wish is simple comparison. We do not experience our lives alone. We measure them against others, against the polished lives we glimpse from the outside, the friend who seems to have chosen more wisely, the stranger whose path looks straighter than ours. But we compare our full inner reality, with all its doubts and failures, to the smooth surface others show the world. It is an unfair contest, rigged against us from the start, and it leaves us wishing for a life we have only ever seen the outside of. Some of the wish is grief in disguise. When we say we would live differently, we often mean we would keep what we lost. We would have the person back, the health back, the time back. The longing for a different life is sometimes just love with nowhere to go, love for something that is gone, dressed up as regret over choices. Understanding this softens it. You do not really want a different life. You want the beloved thing that this life took away. That is not a flaw in your character. That is the cost of having loved at all. And some of the wish is the ache of the unlived. Every life is a series of doors, and to walk through one is to leave the others closed forever. The person you did not become still lives faintly inside you, and on quiet nights she taps on the glass. This is unavoidable. To live any life fully is to not live every other life. The sorrow of the roads not taken is not a sign that you chose wrong. It is a sign that you chose at all, that you are a finite creature who cannot be everything, and finitude, though it aches, is also the very thing that makes a single life precious. Nietzsche understood all of these strands. He did not ask you to stop feeling them, he asked something subtler, that you stop letting them cast a verdict on the whole. The comparison, the grief, the ache of the unlived, these are real and they will visit you again. But they are not judges. They do not have the authority to declare your one life a mistake. That authority belongs to you, and tonight, slowly, we are learning to use it kindly. Chapter 9. The ledger we keep against ourselves. Many of us carry an invisible ledger. On one side, we write our failures, our wrong turns, the times we fell short. On the other side, if we are generous, we write a few accomplishments. And late at night, in the dark, we take out the ledger and add up the columns, and the failures always seem to weigh more. This nightly accounting is one of the quiet cruelties we perform on ourselves, and it is worth looking at closely, because Nietzsche offers a way out of it. The trouble with the ledger is that it treats a life as if it were a business, something that could turn a profit or a loss. But a life is not a transaction. It is not the sort of thing that succeeds or fails as a whole. It is a growth, a weather, a long unfolding, and the categories of profit and loss simply do not fit it. When you judge your life by the ledger, you are using the wrong instrument, like trying to measure music with a ruler. Notice, too, who writes the ledger. It is written by the part of you that is afraid, the part that learned early to keep score so that it could avoid punishment. That part is not your enemy. It was trying to keep you safe, but it is a poor judge of a whole life because it can only see debts. It cannot see the way your losses deepened you, or the way your wrong turns led you to the people you now love, or the fact that the very capacity to feel regret is a kind of moral seriousness that shallow people never develop. The eternal recurrence quietly retires the ledger. It does not ask you to add up the good and the bad and see which wins. It asks something entirely different. Not was your life worth it on balance, but can you say yes to the whole of it as one thing, indivisible? And a whole is not the sum of its parts. A piece of music has ugly chords in it, dissonances that would sound like mistakes if you froze them and examined them alone. But in the flow of the whole, they are not mistakes. They are the tension that makes the resolution beautiful. Your life, heard as a whole, may be like that. The dissonances were never meant to be totaled up, they were meant to be resolved, and they still can be. Let the ledger close for tonight. You do not have to add anything up. You are allowed, just for these hours, to stop keeping score. Chapter 10. Regret as a second living of the past. There is a strange feature of regret that we rarely notice. It makes us live the worst moments of our lives more than once. The event itself happened a single time, but in regret we return to it again and again, replaying it, reliving the sting, until a thing that occupied one afternoon years ago has occupied 1,000 nights since. Regret is a kind of eternal recurrence we impose on ourselves, but only of the painful parts, and only in the mind. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He noticed that the man consumed by regret and revenge against the past is in a sense chained to it, dragged backward, unable to move forward because he is always turning around to look. The past has already happened and cannot be changed, and yet we keep changing our lives around it, arranging our whole present as a response to a wound that is over. We are like someone who keeps a room exactly as it was on the day of a disaster, decades ago, refusing to let the light in. Here is the quiet insight that can loosen this. If you are going to relive the past anyway, and it seems that being human means you will, then the only real question is how you relive it. You can relive it as an accusation, a case against yourself or against the world, evidence that things went wrong. Or you can relive it as a completed chapter, something that happened, that shaped you, that is now finished and folded into who you are. The event does not change. Your relationship to it does. And that relationship is the one thing in all of this that is still in your hands. This is not the cheap advice to simply think positive. Nietzsche despised that kind of shallow optimism. He is not asking you to pretend the painful things were good. He is asking you to stop giving them the power to keep hurting you now, in this bed, tonight, years after they ended. The past cannot reach into your present unless you carry it there. Set it down. It happened. It is over. It made you. And the you that it made is lying here now, breathing slowly, allowed at last to let the old afternoon be just an afternoon, long ago, in a life that is still going on. Chapter 11, The Roads Not Taken. On quiet nights, the roads we did not take can seem to glow with a special light. The other career, the other city, the person we did not marry or the one we did not leave. The self we might have become if we had been braver or luckier or simply different. These phantom lives can feel more real and more beautiful than the one we are actually living, because they have one enormous advantage. They never happened, and so they never disappointed us. This is the trick the unlived life plays on us. It shows us only its best face. The road not taken is always smooth in our imagination, because we never had to walk its actual miles, with their own potholes and storms and dull afternoons. Every real road has them. The life you did not choose would have had its own regrets, its own roads not taken branching off from it, its own quiet nights of wandering. There is no path through a human life that escapes the ache of the unchosen. To imagine otherwise is to imagine not a different life, but no life at all, a life without the friction of being finite. Nietzsche would have us notice something bracing here. You are not in fact torn between your real life and a shimmering alternative. You are choosing between your real life and a fantasy. And the fantasy owes its beauty entirely to the fact that you never have to live it. When you long for the road not taken, you are not longing for a better real thing. You are longing for the freedom from limitation itself, the wish to have been everything, to have kept every door open. And that wish, however natural, is a wish to not be a particular person at all. But you are a particular person. You walked this road and not the others, and the walking made you specific, and depth and character and the possibility of love. All of these require specificity. A person who kept every door open would be no one. The closing of the other doors is not the tragedy of your life, it is the condition of your having a life, a real one with a shape and a story. Tonight, let the glowing phantom roads dim a little. They were never yours. This one is. And it is still unfolding beneath you as you rest. Chapter 12, Amor, Fati, the words on the ring. There is a phrase in Latin that Nietzsche returned to like a touchstone, two words that hold the whole of what we are moving toward tonight. The phrase is Amor Fati. It means the love of fate. Not the tolerance of fate, not the grim endurance of fate, but the love of it. And Nietzsche called it his formula for greatness in a human being. He wrote about it most beautifully in The Gay Science, describing it almost as a New Year's resolution, a wish for the coming year. He said he wanted to learn more and more, to see what is necessary in things as what is beautiful in them, so that he would become one of those who make things beautiful. Amor Fati, he wrote, let that be my love from now on. He did not want to wage war against what was ugly or unavoidable. He did not even want to accuse the accusers. Looking away, he said, would be his only negation. And all in all, he wanted to be someday only a yes-sayer. Sit with the audacity of this, coming from the man we met earlier, the invalid with the shattered health and the broken sleep. Amor Fati is not the philosophy of a lucky man. It is the hard-won discipline of a man who had every reason for bitterness and refused it, not by denying his suffering but by learning, slowly, to fold even the suffering into a life he could love. He is not saying the pain was good. He is saying that he would rather love the whole of his one existence, pain and all, than spend that existence at war with it. Notice how different this is from resignation. The resigned person says, "This is my lot, I cannot change it, so I will grit my teeth and bear it." That is a kind of defeat wearing the mask of wisdom. Amor Fati says something braver and warmer. "This is my life, the only one I have, woven of exactly these threads, and I will not merely endure it, I will love it, because loving it is the only way to be fully alive inside it. The alternative, the war against fate, cannot be won, and it costs you the very life you are fighting over. The love of fate is not a feeling you can summon on command tonight. It is a direction, a slow turning of the whole self toward yes. You do not have to arrive. You only have to face that way. And simply by lying here, willing to consider that your life might be lovable exactly as it has been, you have already turned a few degrees toward the light. That is enough for now. That is a great deal, in fact. Rest in it. Chapter 13, to love, not merely to bear. We should linger on the distance between bearing a life and loving it, because it is the whole distance we are trying to cross, and it is easy to mistake one for the other. The ancient Stoics, whom Nietzsche admired and argued with, taught a noble version of acceptance. They said, "Some things are up to us, and most things are not. And wisdom is to align our will with what must be, to accept the order of the world without complaint." This is a strong and useful teaching, and on a hard night it can steady you. But Nietzsche felt there was still something cold in it, something that stopped short. To accept your fate is to make a truce with it. To love your fate is to marry it. The Stoic lays down his weapons. The lover of fate opens his arms. Why does the difference matter if the outcome, the unchangeable life, is the same either way? It matters because of what it does to the one living it. The person who merely bears his life holds it at arm's length, like a heavy load he has agreed to carry but resents the weight of. He is always faintly somewhere else wishing. The person who loves her life draws it close, presses it to her, and in doing so stops dividing herself between the life she has and the life she wanted. She becomes whole. All of her energy, which was leaking out into regret and comparison, comes home. And that homecoming feels, from the inside, like peace. There is also this. What we merely bear, we secretly wait to be over. Endurance always has one eye on the exit. But a life is not a thing to get through. It is the only thing there is. To spend it waiting for it to be over is to have already half left it. Nietzsche is calling you back into your own existence, not to suffer it more bravely, but to inhabit it more fully, to be here in this one wild and particular life rather than hovering above it, wishing it were another. You cannot force love, of course, not for a person and not for a life. But you can stop resisting it. You can lower the arm that has been holding your life away. And often, when the resistance stops, something that was always trying to arrive comes in on its own. Tonight, you do not have to manufacture love for your existence. You have only to set down the resistance for a while, here in the dark, and see what quietly moves in to fill the space. Chapter 14. Between Resignation and Yes. It is worth naming, clearly and slowly, the three ways a person can stand toward a life they cannot change, because most of us move among them without knowing it, and knowing them helps. The first way is rebellion. This is the clenched fist, the endless no, the refusal to accept that things are as they are. The rebel against fate spends his strength fighting a war that cannot be won because the past is already fixed and much of the present is not up to him. Rebellion feels powerful for a moment, and there are things in the world that rightly deserve our resistance. But rebellion against your own unchangeable life is a fire that consumes the one who lights it. It burns and changes nothing except to exhaust the rebel. The second way is resignation. This is the dropped shoulders, the sigh, the giving up. The resigned person has stopped fighting, which is a kind of relief, but she has also stopped hoping, stopped reaching, stopped loving. She has made peace with her life by going a little numb. From the outside, resignation can look like wisdom, like serenity. But inside, it is often just a quieter form of the same defeat, a truce bought by ceasing to care. The third way is the yes, and the yes is not louder than resignation, but warmer. It is not the collapse of the fighter into exhaustion. It is the transformation of the fighter into a lover. The yes-sayer has stopped fighting her life like the resigned person, but unlike the resigned person, she has not gone numb. She has gone the other direction, into deeper feeling, into gratitude, into a strange, fierce tenderness for exactly the life she was given. She is not less alive than the rebel. She is more alive because all the strength that the rebel spent on war and the resigned spent on numbness, she has poured back into living. Nietzsche wants to lead us from the first way through the second to the third, and he knew it is a long road. Walk slowly, often looping back. You may find yourself tonight in rebellion still, or sunk in resignation. That is all right. The three ways are stations on a single path, and simply to know which one you are standing in is to have begun to move. The yes is up ahead. You do not have to run to it. You only have to keep facing that way as you drift towards sleep. Chapter 15. How a Sick Man Learned to Bless His Days. Let us return to Nietzsche, the person, because his life is the strongest argument for his philosophy, stronger than any of his reasoning, and it is a story that can quiet the mind. By his late 30s, Nietzsche had given up his professorship. His health had made regular work impossible. He lived on a small pension. moving with the seasons between cheap boarding houses in the mountains and by the sea. He was often terribly alone. His friendships tended to break under the strain of his intensity. The one great love of his life, a brilliant young woman named Lou Salome, did not love him back in the way he hoped, and the loss wounded him deeply. His books, into which he poured everything, sold almost no copies. For years he wrote in nearly complete obscurity, printing his masterpieces at his own expense, sending them to friends who often did not understand them. Imagine the ledger such a man could have kept. Broken body, broken sleep, no wife, no children, no students, no readers, no recognition, wandering from town to town with a bag of books and a head full of pain. By almost any ordinary measure, his was a life to pity. And yet, out of exactly this life, he produced the most life-affirming philosophy in the Western tradition. He who had every reason to curse existence became its great defender. He wrote hymns to the earth, to the body, to joy, to the yes. This is not because he lied about his suffering. He did not. His letters are full of it, unflinching. It is because he made a discovery that we are circling all night, that the affirmation of life does not depend on life going well. It is a different faculty entirely. A person to whom everything is given may still find life empty and curse it. A person from whom everything is taken may still find it holy and bless it. The blessing is not a report on your circumstances. It is a stance of the soul, available even in the dark, especially in the dark. When you hear Nietzsche say Amor, Fati, hear it in the voice of this man, the sleepless invalid on the mountain, and it changes from an abstract idea into something almost unbearably moving. He is not telling you that life is easy and therefore worth loving. He is telling you, from inside his own pain, that life can be loved even when it is hard, and that this love is the highest thing a human being can reach. If he could reach toward it from where he stood, then perhaps tonight, from where you lie, you can reach a little too. Chapter 16, The Convalescent Who Praised the Earth. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche created a character to carry his teaching, a wise wanderer named Zarathustra, who comes down from his mountain to speak to human beings about how to live. And at the heart of the book there is a scene that tells us much about how Nietzsche understood the journey toward the yes. Zarathustra, the teacher of the eternal recurrence, is himself nearly destroyed by his own teaching. When the full weight of the thought comes upon him that everything returns, including all that is small and petty and disappointing in existence, he collapses. He falls down as one dead and lies sick for 7 days. His animals, an eagle and a serpent, watch over him and wait. He is called in this passage the Convalescent, the one who is recovering from a great illness. And the illness is nothing other than the confrontation with his deepest idea. This is a crucial and honest touch. Nietzsche does not pretend that embracing the eternal recurrence is easy or immediate. Even his own hero, the very prophet of the idea, is knocked flat by it and must slowly recover. The yes is not a switch you flip. It is a healing you undergo, with setbacks and long stretches of lying still, tended by patience. If the thought of loving your whole life has ever felt impossible to you, know that Nietzsche built that difficulty into the very center of his book. The convalescent is us, but Zarathustra does recover. And when he rises, his animals speak to him of the eternal return, not as a horror now, but as a song, a ring of rings, a great year of becoming in which all things break and are joined again forever. They tell him he must become the teacher of the eternal recurrence, that this is his fate and his gift. And slowly, through the sickness and the recovery, he comes to a place where he can bless the earth and everything on it, where he can call the world round and whole and good. The lesson hidden in the convalescent is one of patience with yourself. You will not love your fate tonight, entire and at once. You may be knocked flat by parts of your life more than once in the years to come. That is not failure. That is the shape of the healing. Lie still when you must. Let patience tend you like the eagle and the serpent tended Zarathustra. The rising comes in its own time. Tonight, it is enough to be the convalescent, resting, recovering, watched over by the quiet, held by the dark. Chapter 17. The Will to Power, Gently Explained. There is a phrase of Nietzsche's that has been badly misunderstood, and because it touches on tonight's theme, it is worth clearing away the confusion, softly, so that it does not trouble your rest. The phrase is the will to power. When people hear those words, they often imagine domination, cruelty, the desire to rule over others. That is not what Nietzsche meant, and the distortion has done his memory a great disservice. By the will to power, Nietzsche pointed to something he believed lived in every living thing, a drive not merely to survive, but to grow, to overcome resistance, to express and extend itself, to become more fully what it is. A tree pushing its roots deeper and its branches higher is exercising will to power. An artist wrestling a vague feeling into a finished form is exercising will to power. A person overcoming a fear, mastering a skill, deepening into wisdom is exercising will to power. It is the yes of life to itself, the reaching of a living thing toward its own fullness. Understood this way, the will to power is not the enemy of the peace we are seeking tonight. It is part of it. To love your fate is not to lie down and go slack. Amor, Fati, and the will to power belong together, two sides of one affirmation. You embrace your life as it has been, and you reach from within it toward what you can still become. The acceptance is not passive. It is the ground from which growth springs. You make peace with the soil you were planted in precisely so that you can grow out of it, rather than wasting your strength wishing you had been planted elsewhere. This matters for the sleepless mind, which often torments itself with the feeling that it should be doing more, achieving more, becoming more, and cannot rest for the pressure of it. Nietzsche's will to power is not that anxious striving. Anxious striving is the will divided against itself, reaching forward while hating where it stands. True growth, the kind Nietzsche praised, grows out of self-affirmation, not self-rejection. The plant does not grow by despising its roots. It grows by being wholly itself, roots and all, reaching upward without shame at where it began. So let the phrase lose its menace. The will to power, rightly heard, is simply life loving itself enough to keep unfolding. It is in your slow breath. It is in the healing your body does while you sleep. It is in the quiet way you have kept going through everything all these years. You do not have to strive tonight. The deepest will to power in you is doing its work right now, in the dark, as you let go and let the great yes of your own living carry you down into rest. Chapter 18, Becoming Who You Are. Nietzsche gave one of his books a subtitle that is really a whole philosophy in 3 words: how one becomes what one is. It sounds like a paradox. If you already are something, how can you become it? But inside that riddle is a gentle and freeing idea, and it fits our night like a key in a lock. To become who you are does not mean to invent yourself out of nothing, or to force yourself into some ideal shape borrowed from someone else. It means the opposite. It means the slow, patient uncovering and unfolding of the particular person you already secretly are. The shedding of all the borrowed roles and inherited fears and other people's expectations until what remains is your own true shape. A sculptor, Nietzsche might say, does not add a statue to the marble. He removes everything that is not the statue. Becoming who you are is like that. It is a subtraction as much as an addition, a coming home to a self that was always there under the noise. And here is why this speaks to the ache you may have carried to bed. Much of our regret comes from the feeling that we failed to become someone, that we fell short of a person we were supposed to be. But that supposed person is often not our own at all. It is an image handed to us by parents, by culture, by the comparing mind, a template of success we never actually chose. When you grieve for not becoming that person, you are grieving for not becoming someone who was never you to begin with. The real task was never to reach that borrowed image. It was to become more and more the specific soul you actually are. Seen this way, even your so-called failures may have been part of becoming who you are. The path that looked like a wrong turn may have been exactly the turn that stripped away an illusion, that taught you your real limits and your real loves, that dissolved a false self so a truer one could show through. Nietzsche believed that we become what we are not in spite of our struggles, but through them. That the whole crooked, difficult, particular route was the only route by which this particular you could have arrived. You do not have to become anyone new tonight. You have only to let the false layers loosen a little as you rest. The roles you have been performing, the person you thought you were supposed to be. Underneath them, the one you actually are is lying here, breathing, whole, already arrived at this moment by the only road that could have brought you. That is not failure. That is a life, becoming what it is. Chapter 19, the Three Metamorphoses. Near the beginning of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche tells a small parable about how the spirit grows, and it maps the whole journey of a soul in three images. He calls it the Three Metamorphoses. The spirit, he says, becomes first a camel, then a lion, and finally a child. Let us walk through them slowly, because they describe the very path from burden to yes that we are on tonight. First, the spirit becomes a camel. The camel is the bearer of burdens, the one who kneels down and says, "Load me up, give me the heavy things to carry." This is the stage of duty, of discipline, of taking on the weight of what life and others ask of us. The camel is strong, reverent, willing. It carries the values it was given, the responsibilities, the expectations out into the desert. Most of us spend long years as the camel, and there is honor in it. We shoulder what we are told to shoulder. We do what is required. We carry. But there comes a point, out in the loneliest part of the desert, where the spirit must change. It becomes a lion. The lion cannot carry anymore. The lion wants freedom, wants to be master of its own desert, and so the lion confronts a great dragon whose every scale glitters with the words, "Thou shalt." Every burden the camel carried is written on that dragon, all the shoulds, the musts, the inherited commandments. The lion's task is to say no to the dragon, to roar its sacred no against the thou shalt, to win the freedom to decide for itself. The lion cannot yet create new values, but it can clear the ground. It can say no to what was imposed. And then, most mysteriously, the spirit must become a child. For Nietzsche, this is the highest stage, higher even than the proud lion. Why a child? Because the child is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a wheel rolling out of its own center, a first movement, a sacred yes. The lion could only say no, could only destroy the old commandments. The child can say yes, can create, can begin again as if for the first time, playing, without resentment, without the memory of old wounds weighing on it. The child does not carry the desert and does not fight the dragon. The child builds a new world out of joy. Hold these three images as you drift. Perhaps you have been the camel a long time, carrying. Perhaps you are learning, late, to be the lion, to say your sacred no to burdens that were never yours. And perhaps, somewhere ahead, there is the child in you, the one who can say yes to life freshly, without the old grudges, and begin again. Tonight, you do not have to be any of them on command, but you might feel, faintly, which one you are, and sense the next one waiting, patient, up the long, slow slope of becoming. Chapter 20. The Camel, the Weight We Choose to Carry. Let us stay a while with the camel, because most of us know that stage in our bones, and there is a tenderness owed to the part of us that carried, and carries still. The camel is not a figure of contempt in Nietzsche's parable. He calls the camel strong and reverent, a spirit that wants to bear much. There is a kind of greatness in the willingness to shoulder difficulty, to take responsibility, to carry weight without complaint out into the desert. Think of the years you have carried things, the work that had to be done, the people who depended on you, the griefs you bore quietly so that others would not have to, the duties you fulfilled long after the feeling of duty had gone cold. That was the camel in you, kneeling down each morning and saying, "All right, load me up, I will carry it." But the parable contains a warning as well as an honor, and it is this: the camel can carry too long. It can mistake the carrying itself for virtue and go on kneeling for loads it no longer needs to bear, burdens that belong to no one, weights it took on so long ago it has forgotten they can be set down. Some of what keeps us awake at night is exactly this. We are still carrying things that are finished, obligations that expired years ago, guilt for choices that time has already resolved, other people's expectations that we long ago outgrew. The camel does not know how to put anything down. That is why the spirit must eventually become the lion. So, a gentle question for the dark. What are you still carrying that you could set down? Not the loves and the real responsibilities, those you may choose to keep bearing gladly, but the dead weights. The old guilt that has done its work and now only crushes. The grudge you have hauled for a decade that costs you far more than the person it is aimed at. The image of who you should have been. The verdict you passed on yourself long ago and never revisited. These are loads the camel took on and never questioned. Tonight, you are allowed to question them. You do not have to unload everything at once. The camel kneels slowly and rises slowly and sets its burdens down one at a time. But even to see the burden clearly, to say that one is not mine to carry anymore, is to begin to feel lighter. Feel your body against the bed, held up now by something other than your own effort. You can stop carrying just for these hours. The desert will still be there. The weight can wait. Right now, the camel is allowed to rest in the cool sand, unburdened under the enormous quiet of the stars. Chapter 21. The Lion, the Sacred No. The camel carries. The lion refuses. And though our night is a journey toward yes, we cannot reach the yes without passing through a certain no, the lion's sacred no. And it is worth understanding why. Nietzsche pictured the lion facing a great dragon called Thou Shalt, every scale a commandment, a should, a must, glittering with 1,000 years of imposed values. The lion's work is to fight this dragon, to roar a mighty no against everything that was simply handed to it and never chosen. This might sound like the opposite of the peaceful acceptance we are seeking, but look closer. The no of the lion is not a no to life. It is a no to the borrowed, to the imposed, to the burdens that were never truly ours. It clears a space, and only in that cleared space can a real yes grow, a yes that is chosen rather than inherited. This is subtle and important. There is a false acceptance that is really just the camel who never became the lion, a person who says yes to everything because they never learned to say no to anything, who accepts their whole life passively because they never dared to question any of it. That is not Amor Fati. That is submission. Nietzsche's love of fate is not the yes of a creature who cannot say no. It is the yes of a soul that has earned its no, that has looked hard at what was imposed, refused what deserved refusal, and then, from freedom, chosen to embrace its life. The lion must come before the child. The freedom to say no is the price of a yes that means anything. So if there is anger in you, on some nights, anger at what was done to you, at the shoulds you were crushed under, at the life others tried to make you live, do not be ashamed of it. That anger may be the lion waking. It has a rightful work to do. It is not the final word, but it is a necessary word. The person who has never felt the sacred no, who has only ever carried and submitted, has not yet reached the deepest peace, but only its counterfeit. The real peace lies on the far side of the lion, not before it. Tonight, you need not roar. The lion too sleeps. But you might feel somewhere the strength in you that is capable of refusal, the dignity that can say, that burden was never mine, that verdict was never true, that life others wanted for me was never the one I had to live, that strength is not the enemy of your rest, it is what makes your eventual yes free. Let it lie beside you, powerful and quiet, a great cat at ease in the dark, guarding the space where your own true yes will one day grow. Chapter 22. The Child, the Sacred Yes. At the end of Nietzsche's parable stands the child, and the child is the destination, the highest metamorphosis of the spirit. It is worth asking, slowly, what it means that the summit of this fierce philosopher's vision of the soul is not a conqueror or a sage, but a child at play. The child, Nietzsche says, is innocence and forgetting, a new beginning, a game, a wheel rolling out of itself, a first movement, a sacred yes. Each of these images rewards attention. Innocence. The child does not carry the guilt of the past, does not stand accused. Forgetting, the child is not chained to old wounds, but meets the world fresh. A new beginning. The child does not have to earn the right to start again, it simply starts. A wheel rolling out of its own center, the child moves from its own source, not pushed by external shoulds, but drawn by its own delight. And a sacred yes, where the lion could only destroy the old, the child can create the new, and does so not from resentment, but from joy. Notice what the child has that neither the camel nor the lion possessed. The camel could carry, but not choose. The lion could refuse, but not create. Its no was powerful, but still defined by what it opposed. Only the child is free of the past entirely, free enough to say yes, not as a reaction, but as a first movement, a spontaneous blessing of existence. The child does not affirm life because life has met some condition. The child affirms it the way children affirm a summer afternoon, by plunging into it wholly, without keeping score. This is Nietzsche's picture of the person who has completed the journey to Amor Fati. Not a grim stoic bearing his fate, not an angry rebel fighting it, but something closer to a child, playing in the great garden of existence, meeting each moment as a new beginning, unweighed by the ledger, capable of a yes that owes nothing to anyone. It is a startling and beautiful ideal that the highest wisdom should look so much like the earliest innocence, though a second innocence, one reached on the far side of the camel's burdens and the lion's battles, not before them. You were a child once, and knew this yes without being taught it. Somewhere under all the carrying and all the refusing, that capacity is not gone. It is only buried, waiting. Tonight, as you loosen your hold on the day, you might feel a little of it returning, the old ability to simply be here, without grievance, without accounting, meeting the darkness the way a child meets sleep, trustingly letting go. That is the sacred yes, arriving not by force, but by surrender. Let it come. Chapter 23. Thus I willed it. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche names what he considers the deepest source of human suffering and its deepest cure, and both have to do with time and with the past and with a single transforming sentence. This chapter moves slowly, because the idea is the heart of the whole matter. Nietzsche says that the will, the living force in us that reaches into the future, has one great sorrow, one thing it cannot do, and this powerlessness is the root of much of our misery. The will cannot go backward. It cannot undo what has been done. Time moves only one way, and the past is fixed, and against that iron fact even the strongest will is helpless. This, Nietzsche says, is the will's captivity, its gnashing of teeth. That it was is the name of the stone it cannot roll away. And out of this helplessness, he thought, grows the spirit of revenge, the resentment against time itself, against the fact that things have been and cannot be changed. Much of human cruelty and bitterness, he believed, is at bottom this: a rage against the past, a punishing of the present for the crime of the irreversible. What is the cure? Nietzsche's answer is as bold as anything in philosophy. The will cannot change the past, true, but it can do something else. It can change its relationship to the past so completely that it takes the past up into itself and claims it as its own. It can learn to say, of everything that happened, even the worst, thus I willed it. To transform every it was into a thus I willed it, this, Nietzsche says, would be redemption. Not to undo the past, which is impossible, but to embrace it so fully that you would will it, that you claim it as part of the life you affirm. This is not a trick of denial. It does not mean pretending you caused your suffering or that it was secretly good. It means something stranger and deeper, reaching a state where you have so fully accepted your life, woven the past so completely into who you have become, that you no longer stand against it, wishing it undone. You take ownership not of the events, but of the whole life they belong to. You stop being the victim of your history and become the author who claims it. Every chapter as belonging to this book and no other. Here the eternal recurrence and Amor Fati and the redemption of the past all meet in a single point. To will the eternal return of your life is to say, thus I willed it to the whole of it, forever. It is the will finally freed from its rage against time, no longer gnashing its teeth at the stone it cannot move, but blessing the stone and the mountain and the whole shape of the road. This is the peace Nietzsche spent his life reaching toward. You do not have to reach it fully tonight, but you can feel the direction of it. The slow turning from it was against me. Toward thus I willed it. From victim to author, from war with your past to ownership of your one whole life. Rest now in the direction of that peace. Chapter 24. The Bridge and the Wreckage. Zarathustra says a curious and haunting thing about human beings, that a human is a rope stretched between the animal and something higher, a rope over an abyss, and that what is great in us is that we are a bridge and not an end. This image can comfort the sleepless heart if we hold it gently, because it changes how we see the unfinished, broken quality of a life. We often judge our lives as if they were meant to arrive somewhere, to be completed, resolved, tied off in a neat conclusion. And by that standard, every life falls short, because no life is ever finished the way a solved problem is finished. There are always loose ends, unhealed wounds, unfulfilled hopes, things left undone. If a life is supposed to be a completed thing, then every life is a failure, yours and mine and Nietzsche's too. But what if a life was never meant to be a completed thing? What if it was meant to be a bridge, a crossing, a passage, valuable not for arriving, but for the crossing itself? Nietzsche loved what he called the going across, the movement of a human being reaching beyond where it started, overcoming itself, becoming more than it was. He even praised what he called the going under, the willingness to spend oneself, to pour oneself out in the crossing, like a river giving itself to the sea. From this view, the incompleteness of your life is not a flaw. It is the very sign that you were a bridge, that you were in motion, that you spent yourself reaching. The wreckage along the way, the failures and the falls, these are what a crossing looks like from the inside. No one crosses an abyss without stumbling. So when you lie awake tallying what you did not finish, what you did not become, what remains broken and unresolved, consider that you may be judging a bridge for not being a house. A bridge is not supposed to be a place you settle. It is supposed to carry you across. And you have been crossing all these years over your own abyss, reaching towards something on the far side you may never fully see. That reaching, not the arriving, is the greatness Nietzsche saw in the human being. You are not a failed arrival. You are a bridge, still spanning, still carrying, still in the beautiful and difficult act of going across. Let the demand for completion loosen tonight. You do not have to have arrived, you do not have to have finished. It is enough, and more than enough, to have been a crossing, to have spent yourself in the going across. The abyss does not have you. The far side does not need to be reached tonight. Right now, you may simply rest on the bridge, held above the dark, and let the crossing pause and breathe under the wheeling and patient stars. Chapter 25. the small moments you would keep. We have been moving through large ideas, the whole of a life, the past entire, the great yes. Let us come down now to something small and near, because the love of fate is not only built from grand acceptance, it is also built brick by brick from particular moments. And there are more of these hidden in your life than the accounting mind remembers. The demon's question asks whether you would live your whole life again, and heard as a total, it can feel crushing. But a life is not lived as a total. It is lived as a sequence of moments, most of them small, and some of those small moments are so quietly good that if you truly considered living them again, you would not hesitate. A particular morning light on a wall, the weight of a sleeping child or a sleeping animal against you, a conversation that went late into the night with someone who understood you, the taste of water when you were truly thirsty, a joke that made you laugh until you could not breathe, walking home under trees, the relief of lying down at the end of a long day, exactly as you are lying down now. These moments do not announce themselves. They do not go into the ledger which only tracks achievements and failures. They pass almost unnoticed, and yet they are, when you stop to feel them, the actual texture of a life worth living. Nietzsche wanted us to become the kind of people who notice them, who let them count, who understand that a single afternoon of real presence can outweigh years of anxious striving. The eternal recurrence, turned this way, becomes not a threat but an invitation to find the moments you would gladly live forever, and to have more of them, and to be awake enough to know them while they are happening. There is a practice hidden here, and it is a gentle one for a sleepless night. Instead of scanning your life for what went wrong, which the mind does automatically in the dark, you can scan it for the small moments you would keep. Go back through the years slowly and gather them, the little unremarkable glories, the times you were simply wholly glad to be alive. You will find more than you expected. They were always there. The accounting mind just never wrote them down. And notice this: the very fact that such moments exist at all means your life already contains things worth eternally returning to. You do not have to affirm the whole in one heroic act. You can begin with a single afternoon you would happily live again, and then another and another, letting the yes build from the ground up, from the real and particular and small, until one day you look up and find that it has quietly spread to cover almost everything. Tonight, gather a few of those moments and hold them and let them warm you down into sleep. Chapter 26: The People You Would Meet Again. Among all the things the eternal recurrence would return to you, some are people, and this is perhaps the most tender region of the whole idea, and the one that most quietly reconciles us to our lives. If you would live your life again exactly, then you would meet again everyone you have ever loved, the parent whose voice you can still hear, the friend of your youth, the person who first made you feel truly known, the child you watched grow, or the old companion who walked beside you for years. In the endless circle, they come back, every one of them, in the same order, and you love them again for the first time, again and again, forever. When the demon's question is heard through the people in it, the horror softens strangely into something like a reprieve. You would not have to lose them permanently, you would meet them again. And here is the peace that undoes so much regret. The people you love came to you through the exact life you lived, including its wrong turns and its sorrows. Change one thing, take a different road, spare yourself one loss, and you unravel the whole tapestry, and the beloved faces disappear along with the pain. The person you cannot imagine your life without, you met only because of a chain of events that included things you wish had gone otherwise. To wish those things away is to wish that person away. And almost no one, looking clearly, is willing to do that. We would keep the ache to keep the love, because the ache and the love came bound together and cannot be separated. This is why Nietzsche's yes is not naive. He is not saying the losses did not hurt. He is saying that the losses and the loves are woven of one thread, and that to affirm the loves is, whether we like it or not, to affirm the whole weave. The grief you carry for someone is the exact measure of a love you would not undo. The two are one thing. When you understand this, grief itself changes character. It stops being only a wound and becomes also a strange kind of gratitude, the proof that something entered your life worth grieving, something you would meet again, gladly, in every turning of the wheel. So, tonight, if there are people you have lost, or people far from you now, hold them in the soft light of this thought. In the great circle Nietzsche imagined, nothing beloved is finally lost. It returns. And even outside that circle, whether it is literally true or not, the love was real and remains real, folded permanently into the life you are, a life you would live again to have met them. Let the faces of the people you would meet again gather quietly around you now, not as sources of longing, but as reasons your one life was worth the whole of its cost. Rest among them. Chapter 27, on Comparison and the Poison of Envy. Nietzsche was a sharp observer of the small torments that keep human beings from loving their lives, and one of the sharpest is comparison. It is worth shining a gentle light on it tonight, because comparison is one of the great thieves of peace, and it visits most often in the dark. The comparing mind is never satisfied, because comparison has no floor and no ceiling. There is always someone who seems to have more, done more, suffered less, arrived sooner. And the moment you measure your life against theirs, your life stops being your life and becomes a mere position in a ranking, a place on a ladder, a score. This is a kind of madness, though a common one. It takes the one incomparable thing you have, your own singular existence, and pretends it can be weighed against another on a single scale. But no two lives are on the same scale. Each is its own kind of thing, with its own weather and its own logic, and to rank them is to misunderstand what a life is. Nietzsche saw that envy, the child of comparison, is a form of the resentment we spoke of earlier, the rage of the will against what it cannot have, and like all resentment, it poisons the one who holds it far more than anyone else. When you envy another's life, you are, in effect, refusing your own, saying no to what you have because your eye is fixed on what you lack. The envious person cannot love their fate because they are never actually looking at their fate. They are always looking sideways at someone else's. The cure is not to win the comparison, to finally have more than the others, because that victory never comes and never satisfies. The cure is to step off the ladder entirely, to return your attention from the sideways glance to the life actually in front of you and beneath you. Amor Fati is impossible as long as you are comparing, because it requires you to love this life on its own terms, not as it ranks against others, but as it is in itself. The moment you stop comparing, your life is returned to you, whole, incomparable, yours alone, and it becomes possible to love it, which it never was while you were measuring. This is a good thing to set down before sleep, because the comparing mind loves the night, when there is nothing to distract it and everyone else's life can be imagined at its shining best. Tonight, let the ladder go. There is no one to be measured against here in the dark. There is only your own breath, your own tiredness, your own singular existence, which is not better or worse than anyone else's, because it is not on the same scale as anyone else's. It is simply yours, the only one you will ever have. And in this quiet hour, it asks only to be lived, and perhaps softly to be loved. Let the comparisons dissolve, and let your own life come home to you. Chapter 28. The Solitary Walker. Nietzsche did most of his thinking while walking, alone, for hours, in the mountains and along the sea. And solitude was not merely a circumstance of his life, but something close to a value in it. On a wakeful night, when you are alone with your own mind, it can help to hear how he understood aloneness, because he found in it not only pain, but a strange richness. He was, by any measure, a deeply solitary man. He had few close friends, no wife, no settled home, and for long stretches almost no company but his own thoughts and the vast landscapes he walked through. This solitude cost him. His letters ache with loneliness, and he never pretended otherwise. But he also came to see that the solitary hours were where his deepest thinking happened, that the crowd and the chatter of the world drowned out the quiet inner voice, and that only in aloneness could a person hear what they actually thought, actually felt, actually were. Solitude, for Nietzsche, was the workshop of the self. There is a difference, he understood, between loneliness and solitude, though they wear the same outward face. Loneliness is solitude experienced as lack, as exile, as the painful absence of others. Solitude is the same aloneness experienced as fullness, as freedom, as a homecoming to oneself. The circumstances are identical. What differs is the relationship. And Nietzsche, over years, slowly transformed his loneliness into solitude, not by ending his aloneness, but by changing what he made of it, learning to meet himself in the quiet rather than only to miss others. This is worth remembering on a night when you cannot sleep, and the whole world seems to be resting while you lie awake. The wakeful hours can be experienced as a lonely exile, a punishment, a proof that something is wrong. Or they can be experienced at least a little, as solitude, a rare quiet in which you are returned to yourself, unobserved, unhurried, free of all the roles you play for others during the day. Right now, there is no one you have to be anything for. There is only you and the dark and the slow tide of your own breath. That is not only loss, it is also a kind of freedom if you let it be. Nietzsche walked his solitary miles and came back with gifts for the rest of us, thoughts he could only have found in the quiet. Your solitary hours, too, are not empty. In them, undisturbed, the mind sorts and heals and settles. The day is digested. The self is quietly restored. You are not being punished by wakefulness. You are being given, whether you asked for it or not, a span of solitude. Let it be a homecoming rather than an exile. Let yourself be alone with yourself, gently, the way the solitary walker was alone with the mountains, and let that aloneness carry you, at last, down toward rest. Chapter 29. Ressentiment. The poison of the turned inward life. Nietzsche gave a name, borrowed from the French, to one of the most corrosive conditions of the human heart, and understanding it can free us from a great deal of nighttime suffering. The name is Ressentiment. It means something deeper than ordinary resentment, and it lies at the root of much of what keeps a person from loving their life. Ressentiment is what happens when a hurt cannot be discharged, and so turns inward and festers. Imagine a person who has been wronged, but cannot or does not act, cannot confront, cannot change the situation, cannot let it go. The injury has nowhere to move, so it turns back on itself and becomes a permanent inner condition, a slow poison. The person begins to define themselves by the wound, to build an identity around being the one who was wronged. And from this turned inward hurt grows a whole way of seeing the world, coloured by grievance, quick to blame, unable to affirm anything because it is too busy nursing what went wrong. Nietzsche believed ressentiment was the enemy of everything healthy and life-affirming in a person. It is the exact opposite of Amor Fati. Where the love of fate says yes to life as it is, ressentiment says a perpetual no, keeps the old accounts open forever, refuses to let the past be past. It is the will gnashing its teeth at what it cannot change, dressed up as moral outrage or self-pity, and its cruelest feature is that it hurts almost no one but the person who holds it. The one who wronged you sleeps peacefully. You lie awake, drinking the poison, night after night, calling it justice. The cure Nietzsche points toward is not to pretend you were never hurt. It is to let the hurt move, to discharge it, to complete it, so that it does not turn inward and set. Sometimes this means action in the daylight, speaking, changing, leaving, repairing. But often, especially with old and unfixable wrongs, it means the harder inner work of release, of finally closing an account that has stayed open for years, of deciding that you will no longer organize your life around a wound. This is not weakness or forgetting. It is the reclaiming of your own strength from the grip of the past. Tonight, you might gently ask whether any old ressentiment is keeping you awake. Some grievance you have carried so long it has become part of how you see yourself. You do not have to resolve it now. but you can notice it and see it for what it is, not justice, but poison, not strength, but the slow draining of strength, and you can loosen your grip on it even slightly. The past that wronged you is over. The person who wronged you is not in this room. Only you are here, and the wound is only as alive as you keep it. Let it, tonight, begin to close. Let the poison drain away into the dark and leave you lighter and freer and finally able to rest. Chapter 30. Forgiving the life you were given. There is a kind of forgiveness we rarely speak of, which is not the forgiveness of another person, but the forgiveness of your own life, the pardoning of existence itself for not having been what you hoped. It is the innermost movement of Amor, Fati, and it is worth approaching slowly and tenderly, because it is the very thing the sleepless heart most needs. Many of us carry, without ever naming it, a grievance against our own life, not against any particular person, but against the whole shape of what we were given, the family we were born into, the era, the body, the temperament, the run of luck, good and bad, the opportunities that came or failed to come. We feel, somewhere beneath articulation, that we were dealt an unfair hand, that life owed us something it did not deliver, that our existence, compared to some imagined fair existence, fell short. And this unspoken grievance colours everything like a faint bitterness at the bottom of the cup. To forgive your life is to release this grievance. Not to pretend the hand was fair, or that you got what you deserved, or that everything happened for a good reason. Life makes no such promises, and Nietzsche would be the last to offer false comfort. To forgive your life is something starker and freer than that. It is to stop demanding that it have been otherwise. It is to look at the whole difficult, particular, unrepeatable thing you were given and to say, not it was fair, but I release my case against it. I will stop suing existence for damages. I will accept the hand and play it, and even, in time, come to love it. This forgiveness is not for the sake of life, which does not need your pardon and will go on regardless. It is for your sake. As long as you hold a grievance against your existence, you cannot rest in it, cannot inhabit it fully, cannot love it. You are like a guest who spends the whole visit complaining that the house should have been built differently and so never actually lives in it. To forgive your life is to finally move in, to unpack, to make a home of the only dwelling you will ever have, exactly as it is, with all its odd rooms and its drafts and its imperfect light. You do not have to complete this forgiveness tonight. It is the work of years, and it comes and goes, but you can make a small motion toward it, here in the dark. You can say, quietly, to your own life, I have held a case against you. I am tired of carrying it. I am willing, a little, to set it down. That willingness is itself the beginning of the pardon and the beginning of peace. Your life is not on trial anymore, not tonight. Let the case rest. Let yourself at last be at home in your own existence, and let that being at home carry you gently down into sleep. Chapter 31. the eternal return of small and ordinary things. We tend to imagine that the meaning of a life is stored in its big moments, the dramatic turns, the great successes and failures, the peaks and the catastrophes. But when Nietzsche imagined the eternal return, he was careful to include everything, and especially the small and ordinary. And there is a deep comfort in this that is easy to miss. Recall the demon's words. It was not only the great things that would return, but this very spider, and the moonlight between the trees, and this very moment, the small and unremarkable now. Nietzsche insisted on the smallest, unspeakably small details, because he understood that a life is mostly made of them. The peaks are rare. What fills the vast middle of any existence is the ordinary. The meals, the walks, the routines, the quiet afternoons, the thousand small gestures that no one remembers. If the eternal return is to mean anything, it must be a yes to all of this, to the ordinary texture of the days, not only to the highlights. And this is strangely freeing. It means that a good life is not one crammed with peak experiences, which no life can sustain, but one in which the ordinary itself has become good enough to affirm. The person who has reached Amor Fati does not need dramatic joys to bless their existence. They can bless the small return, this cup of tea, this patch of light, this quiet evening, this ordinary body doing its ordinary living. They have found the yes in the middle of the ordinary, which is where almost all of life actually happens. And that is a far more durable peace than one that depends on constant peaks. There is a discipline hidden here, gentle and available to you tonight. So much of our discontent comes from waiting for life to become special, treating the ordinary present as mere filler between the meaningful moments, forever postponing our contentment until something remarkable arrives. But the ordinary present is the life. This hour, unremarkable as it is not a waiting room for your real life. It is your real life, as real as any hour will ever be. To learn to affirm it, plain as it is to stop postponing your existence and to finally begin living it. Feel the small, ordinary reality of this very moment, the weight of your body, the texture of the sheets, the temperature of the air, the sound of your own breathing. Nothing dramatic, nothing remarkable. And yet this, exactly this, is a moment of your one life. The kind of moment that fills most of it, the kind Nietzsche's demon promised would return. It asks nothing of you but to be here for it. Let it be enough, this ordinary now. Let the small return be blessed, and let the plainness of the present, fully inhabited, become the quiet ground on which you rest. Chapter 32. One must still have chaos in oneself. Early in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, there is a line that has travelled far beyond the book, and it holds a gentle wisdom about the inner disorder that so often keeps us awake. Zarathustra says that one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Consider what this means for the sleepless mind, which so often experiences its own inner turbulence as a problem, a failure, a sign that something is broken. We long for a quiet, orderly interior, a mind like a still pond, and when instead we find churning, restlessness, a swarm of thoughts and feelings that will not settle, we judge ourselves for it. But Nietzsche suggests that the inner chaos is not merely an affliction to be eliminated. It is also the raw material of everything creative and alive in us. The dancing star, the thing of beauty and light, is born precisely out of the chaos, not out of the still and empty pond. This does not mean you should welcome a racing mind at bedtime or that turbulence is comfortable. It means only that the churning within you is not evidence that you are defective. It is evidence that you are alive, that you contain multitudes, that there is energy and depth and unresolved possibility in you. The person with no chaos inside, if such a person exists, is not enviable. They are flat, finished, incapable of surprising themselves. The very restlessness that troubles you is bound up with your capacity for creation, for growth, for becoming something new. So, a gentler relationship with your own inner disorder becomes possible. Instead of fighting the chaos, which only feeds it, you can regard it with a kind of respect, even affection. This churning is my aliveness. These unresolved things are the material from which, in time, something may be born. I do not have to resolve them tonight. I do not have to still them by force. I can let them move and swirl in their own depths like weather over a dark sea, while I, on the shore, simply rest and watch and breathe. There is a paradox in sleep that every insomniac knows. The harder you try to force the mind into stillness, the more it churns. Stillness cannot be seized, it can only be allowed. And it is allowed most easily when you stop treating your inner chaos as an enemy to be defeated and begin treating it as a natural weather you can simply let pass through. The chaos in you is not keeping you from a dancing star. It is where the dancing star will come from. Let it churn, gently, unopposed, and let yourself lie easy beside it, and in that ease, unforced, the stillness you have been chasing may quietly arrive on its own. Chapter 33. Nietzsche and the Dance. Of all the images Nietzsche loved, few recur more often or more joyfully than dancing. He praised the dance, the lightfoot, the god who would know how to dance. For a philosopher so associated in the popular mind with darkness and difficulty, this love of dancing is revealing, and it points toward the lightness that lies on the far side of all his heavy thoughts. Why did dancing mean so much to him? Because a dance is the perfect image of a life that has stopped fighting itself. In a dance, you do not resist the music or the movement or the ground. You yield to them, you move with them, and out of that yielding comes not weakness but grace. The dancer does not carry the dance like a burden, nor rebel against it, nor merely endure it. The dancer loves it, gives themselves to it, becomes one with it. Dancing is Amor Fati made visible, the whole self saying yes with its body, moving in glad agreement with the music of existence. Nietzsche contrasted this with the spirit of gravity, his name for everything heavy, plodding, self-serious, weighed down by shoulds and grudges and the accumulated dust of ressentiment. The spirit of gravity is the enemy of the dance. It makes the feet heavy, drags them toward the ground, turns life into a trudge. And much of what Nietzsche's philosophy tries to do is to lift the spirit of gravity, to teach us to carry our existence lightly enough to dance with it, rather than being pressed flat beneath it. This is a surprising note to sound after so many heavy chapters, but it is the true destination of the whole path. Amor Fati, fully reached, is not solemn, it is light. The person who has truly learned to love their fate does not go about with a grave and burdened face, nobly bearing the weight of existence. They go about in their best hours with something like lightness, even playfulness, a readiness to dance with whatever comes, because they have laid down the great weight of their war against life. The yes at its summit laughs. It dances. It is not heavy at all. You will not dance tonight, of course, lying here in the dark, but you can feel perhaps the possibility of lightness beneath all the heaviness you carried to bed. The griefs and the grudges and the shoulds are real, but they are not the final word. Beyond them, Nietzsche promises, is a lightness, a grace, a self that has learned to move with existence rather than against it. Let that promise loosen something in you now. Let the spirit of gravity ease its pull. Let your limbs grow light against the bed, as if you could, in some quiet inner way, begin at last to dance, unhurried, towards sleep. Chapter 34, The God Who Could Dance. Nietzsche once wrote through his character Zarathustra that he could only believe in a God who knew how to dance. It is a striking phrase, and it opens onto something important about the kind of affirmation he was reaching for and the kind of peace it can bring to a restless heart. For Nietzsche, much of the religion and philosophy he inherited had made existence heavy. It had taught people to look away from this life toward another, to treat the earth and the body and the passing moment as lesser things, mere shadows of some higher, truer world elsewhere. And this, he thought, was a kind of slander against life, a way of saying no to the only existence we actually have in the name of one we merely imagine. It bred the spirit of gravity, the downcast eyes, the endless deferral of joy to some other world. A god of that kind could not dance, because that kind of divinity was built on turning away from the dancing world. Against all of this, Nietzsche wanted to bless the earth, to say a great yes to this life, this body, this world, right here, with no appeal to any beyond. His dancing God is the symbol of a holiness that does not despise existence, but delights in it, that finds the sacred not in escape from the world, but in full-hearted presence within it. To affirm life the way Nietzsche wanted is to stop looking past your existence toward some imagined better place, and to find, in the actual world you are living in, enough beauty and depth to dance to. This has a quiet application for the sleepless soul. So much of our unrest comes from being elsewhere, in the remembered past, in the anxious future, in the imagined life we did not live, in any world but the one actually surrounding us in this moment. The mind at night is a great escape artist, forever fleeing the present into some other time or possibility. And every flight from the present is a small no to your actual life, a small refusal to be here where the only real existence is happening. The dancing God calls you back, not to a heaven elsewhere, but to the sacredness of the here and now, this dark room, this quiet hour, this breathing body, this single, unrepeatable moment of your one earthly life. There is nowhere else you need to be. There is no better world you are missing by being here. This is the world, and this moment is holy enough, ordinary as it is, to be fully present to. Come back from all your elsewheres. Let the here and now be enough. And in that homecoming to the present, which is the beginning of Nietzsche's yes, let the restlessness settle and let yourself be, simply and wholly, where you already are. Chapter 35. The stars that do not need you to watch them. On a clear night, if you could see past the roof and the city glow, there would be stars overhead in numbers beyond counting, most of them so far away that their light left them before you were born, some before the earth existed. Nietzsche, walking his mountain paths under those enormous skies, felt the strange consolation they offer, and it is worth receiving tonight. There is a way of feeling small under the stars that is crushing, that makes a person feel meaningless, a speck of dust in an indifferent void. But there is another way of feeling small under the stars that is one of the great reliefs available to a human being. It is the relief of scale, the sudden loosening of the grip of our own concerns when they are set against the immensity of things. The worries that felt so enormous an hour ago, the regrets, the fears, the endless private accounting do not vanish, but they find their true proportion. They become what they are, the concerns of one small creature, on one small world for one brief while, under a sky that has been turning for ages, beyond imagining, and will turn for ages more. Nietzsche did not offer this to make us feel worthless. He offered it to free us from the tyranny of our own self-importance, which is one of the heaviest burdens we carry. When you are the center of your own universe, every failure is a catastrophe. Every regret is eternal. Every worry is the most important thing in existence. But you are not the center of the universe, and this is not bad news. It is a release. The vast, ancient, indifferent seeming sky does not need you to solve your life tonight. It does not require you to have become who you should have been. It simply turns, immense and patient, holding your small existence within its enormous calm, asking nothing of you at all. There is even a strange intimacy in this. The atoms in your body were forged in stars that died long before the sun was born. You are, quite literally, made of the same stuff as those distant lights, a piece of the cosmos that has briefly woken up and is lying here in the dark, thinking and feeling and worrying. The immensity overhead is not other than you. It is your home and your origin and your material. To feel small beneath it is also, in a way, to feel that you belong to it, that you are held by something vast and old and enduring, which will go on holding you whether or not you ever solve a single one of your problems. Let the stars, imagined above the roof, do their old work tonight. Let your concerns find their true small proportion against the enormous quiet of the sky. You do not have to carry the whole weight of your life as if it were the center of everything. It is not. It is one precious small life under an immensity that holds it gently. Let that scale relieve you. Let the vast patient dark hold your small existence, and let yourself, a piece of the cosmos briefly awake, drift back toward the sleep from which all things are made. Chapter 36. Solitude as a Homecoming. We spoke earlier of the solitary walker and of the difference between loneliness and solitude. Let us return to that quiet country once more, from a slightly different angle, because for the wakeful there is a deep peace to be found in learning to be at home in one's own company. Nietzsche wrote that in solitude the lonely one finds not emptiness but himself, that going into the quiet was a return rather than an exile. This was hard-won for him, a man who felt his isolation keenly. But over years he made of his aloneness a kind of home, a place he could enter and be restored, rather than a wilderness he was cast out into. And the secret of that transformation was simply this: he stopped experiencing his own company as a lack and began experiencing it as a presence. He was not alone in the sense of being with no one. He was with himself, and he learned to find that company sufficient, even rich. Most of us are strangers to ourselves. We fill every quiet moment with distraction, with noise, with the voices and images of others, precisely so that we will not have to sit alone with the one person we can never leave. And then, on nights like this one, when the distractions fall away and there is no one left but ourselves, we panic a little because we do not know this person well and are not sure we like them and have spent a lifetime avoiding the encounter. The wakeful night forces the meeting we have long postponed. But this meeting need not be dreaded. It can be, with a little gentleness, a homecoming. The self you are alone with in the dark is not an enemy. It is the one who has been with you through everything, every joy and every sorrow, the faithful companion of your whole existence, the one presence that has never once left you and never will. To be alone with yourself is to be with an old friend, the oldest you have, if only you can learn to greet that friend kindly rather than with the harsh judgment we so often reserve for ourselves. Tonight, try to meet yourself as you would meet a beloved friend who was tired and could not sleep. Not with criticism, not with the ledger, not with the long list of shortcomings, but with kindness, with patience, with the simple warmth of good company. You are not alone tonight, not really. You are with yourself, and that is not nothing. That is the one companionship that will last your whole life. Let the wakeful hours be a homecoming to that companionship, a quiet evening spent gently in your own presence, and held in that kind company, your own, at last at home in yourself. Let the loneliness become solitude, and the solitude become peace, and the peace become sleep. Chapter 37. Saying Yes to the Body and the Earth. Nietzsche was, among the great philosophers, one of the most insistent that we are our bodies, that the earth is our home, and that the wisdom which teaches us to despise the flesh and the world is a wisdom of the sick and the tired. On a night of rest, this teaching turns naturally toward comfort, because sleep is above all a homecoming to the body. Zarathustra tells his listeners to remain faithful to the earth and not to believe those who speak of otherworldly hopes. He wanted human beings to stop treating the body as a lowly vessel for some purer soul, and to recognize instead that the body is the great reason, the deep intelligence, the ground of everything we are. Your thinking, your feeling, your very sense of being a self, all of it rises out of the body, this warm animal that has carried you faithfully through every day of your life and is carrying you now, breathing without your effort, beating without your command, healing without your knowledge as you lie here in the dark. We spend so much of our lives at odds with our bodies, criticizing them, pushing them, ignoring their signals, treating them as instruments to be used, rather than as the very substance of who we are. And at night, in particular, we often turn against the body, frustrated that it will not sleep on command, angry at it for its restlessness, as if it were a disobedient machine. But the body is not your servant or your enemy. It is you, the deepest and most faithful part of you, and it knows how to rest far better than the anxious mind that keeps overriding it. To say yes to your fate includes saying yes to this body, exactly as it is, with its particular history, its aches, its scars, its slow changes over the years. This is the body that has been the vehicle of your entire existence, that has felt every pleasure you have ever known and borne every pain that has carried you loyally toward this very moment. It deserves not your criticism but your gratitude, and tonight it deserves your trust. It knows how to sleep. It has done so thousands of times. If you can stop fighting it, stop overriding it with the restless mind, it will carry you down into rest as it always has. So let your attention sink out of the busy head and down into the body. Feel it, warm and heavy and alive, held by the bed. Feel the breath moving in it without your effort. Feel the faithful animal of yourself, which asks only to be allowed to rest. Say yes to it, this earthly body, this piece of the living world. Remain faithful to the earth, Zarathustra said. And tonight that faithfulness is very simple. It is to trust your own body, to let it do what it knows how to do, to sink into it and let it carry you, as the earth carries all its creatures gently down into sleep. Chapter 38, What Nietzsche Did Not Mean. Because Nietzsche's ideas have so often been twisted, and because a mind at rest deserves the truth rather than the caricature, let us spend a little while clearing away the distortions, gently, so that they do not trouble the peace we are building. To love a thinker's real gift, it helps to know what he did not say. He did not teach cruelty. The popular image of Nietzsche as a philosopher of ruthlessness, of trampling the weak, of might making right, is a grotesque misreading, much of it the fault of others who used his name for their own dark purposes after his death. His actual concern was the flourishing of the human spirit, the overcoming of resentment, the affirmation of life. The strength he prized was not the strength to dominate others, but the strength to affirm one's own existence, to say yes to life without needing anyone else to lose. The truly strong, for Nietzsche, are generous, overflowing, able to bless, not because they have conquered others, but because they are at peace with themselves. He did not preach despair, though he is often filed under gloom. It is true that he looked without flinching at the hardest facts of existence, at suffering, at loss, at the absence of any guaranteed cosmic meaning. But he did this not to sink into despair, but to find a way through it, to affirmation, to a yes that had passed through, the full acknowledgement of the no. His whole project was the opposite of despair. It was the search for a way to love life after every easy comfort had been stripped away, a joy earned on the far side of honesty rather than borrowed from illusion. And the famous phrase about God being dead was not a triumphant boast, but something closer to a lament and a warning. Nietzsche was describing what he saw happening in his culture, the fading of the old shared faith that had given life meaning for centuries, and he was deeply worried about what would fill the void. He did not celebrate the loss. He asked urgently how human beings would find meaning and value once the old sources had dried up. And his answer, his whole answer, was the difficult labor of affirmation we have been exploring all night. To become the kind of person who can bless their own existence and create meaning from within, rather than receiving it from above. So the Nietzsche who keeps us company tonight is not the cartoon villain of popular legend. He is a suffering, honest, deeply serious man who looked at existence without any comforting illusions and still, from within his own pain, reached toward a great yes to life. That is a far more trustworthy companion for the dark than the caricature. Let the distortions fall away. What remains is a philosopher of affirmation, of the love of fate, of faithfulness to the earth, who wanted, more than anything, for human beings to be able to bless their own lives. It is that Nietzsche, the real one, whose gentle and difficult wisdom is holding you now. Chapter 39, The Overman, Rightly Understood. One more idea deserves to be freed from its distortions, because it is beautiful when rightly understood and monstrous when twisted, and knowing the true version brings a quiet inspiration rather than any unease. It is Nietzsche's idea of the Overman, sometimes translated as the Superman, though both words carry misleading echoes. The Overman is not a master race, not a tyrant, not a being who rules over others. Nietzsche used the German word Übermensch to point at something we might better call the overcoming human, the person who has overcome themselves, who has moved beyond the small, resentful herd-following, self-divided condition in which most of us spend our lives, into a fuller, freer, more affirming way of being. The Overman is defined not by power over others, but by a certain relationship to oneself and to life, the capacity to create one's own values, to affirm one's own existence, to say the sacred yes we spoke of in the parable of the child. Crucially, the Overman is not a type of person who already exists and looks down on the rest. It is an ideal, a direction, a possibility that Nietzsche held up as something for humanity to grow toward. Zarathustra says, the human is something that must be overcome, meaning not that people should be dominated, but that each of us contains the possibility of becoming more than our present small and frightened selves. The Overman is who we might become if we fully embrace the journey from camel to lion to child, if we truly learned to love our fate and create meaning from within, It is less a person than a horizon. And this horizon is intimately connected to everything we have explored tonight. The one who could genuinely say yes to the eternal recurrence, who could love their fate entirely, who could transform every it was into a "thus I willed it," who could dance with existence rather than trudging under it, that person would be moving toward what Nietzsche meant by the Overman. It is not a matter of being stronger or higher than other people. It is a matter of being more fully alive, more deeply reconciled to existence, more capable of blessing the world and oneself. You do not have to become the Overman tonight or ever in any complete sense. It is a horizon, and horizons are for walking toward, not arriving at. But you can feel the direction of it, the invitation in it, to become a little more, someone who affirms rather than resents, who creates meaning rather than merely inheriting or lacking it, who can say yes to their own life. That growth is the work of a lifetime, and it is enough on any given night simply to face that direction. Face it now, gently, as you rest, toward the fuller, freer, more affirming self. You are always slowly in the process of becoming. And let the facing be enough, and let sleep carry the rest. Chapter 40. The Last Silent Years. We should speak softly and with tenderness of how Nietzsche's story ended, because it is part of the truth of the man, and because there is a strange gentleness even in his tragedy that belongs to our night. In early 1889, in the Italian city of Turin, Nietzsche collapsed. The exact nature of what happened to him has been debated ever since, but its effect was clear. The brilliant, restless, world-questioning mind went dark. He was taken into care, first in asylums, then by his mother and later his sister, and for the last 11 years of his life he lived in silence, no longer able to think or write as he once had, largely absent from himself. The man who had thought so fiercely about existence spent his final decade beyond the reach of thought, tended like a child, gazing out at a world he could no longer interrogate. There is a great sorrow in this, and it would be wrong to pretend otherwise. The mind that gave us the eternal recurrence and Amor Fati fell silent, just as, in the last years before his collapse, his work was finally beginning to find readers. He never knew the enormous influence his books would have. He died in 1900. At the threshold of a century, his thought would help to shape without ever seeing the harvest of what he had planted in his lonely, sleepless years of writing. And yet, even here, there is something that speaks to the heart of his own philosophy. Nietzsche had spent his life teaching the affirmation of existence in all its aspects, including the ones we would never choose. His own end was one of those aspects, unchosen, undeserved, the kind of fate that the ledger-keeping mind can only read as a tragedy and a waste. But his philosophy asks a harder and deeper question than the ledger: whether a life can be affirmed as a whole, including its darkest turns, including the parts that no one would choose. His silent years put his own teaching to the ultimate test, a test he could no longer consciously take, and left it to us to answer on his behalf. And perhaps the answer is this, that his life, taken whole, including its illness and its loneliness and its silent ending, was still a life that gave immeasurable gifts to the world, a life whose suffering was inseparable from its depth, a life that, difficult as it was, we would not wish undone, because to undo it would be to undo the very wisdom that now, over a century later, is keeping a wakeful stranger company in the dark. His fate was hard, and his fate was a gift. Both are true, and holding both together is exactly the difficult art he spent his life teaching. Let his story rest gently in you now, sorrow and gratitude together, as you move toward your own quiet rest. Chapter 41: Why He Still Speaks to the Sleepless. It is worth pausing this far into the night to ask why the thoughts of a sleepless German philosopher, dead for well over a century, should have anything to say to you, lying here in your own particular life, with your own particular sorrows. The answer reveals something about why we have spent these hours together. Nietzsche speaks to the sleepless because he was one of us. He knew the long dark hours when the body will not rest and the mind circles its regrets. He knew what it was to lie awake, questioning the worth of one's own existence, to feel the weight of a life that had not gone as hoped, to face the demon in the doorway, asking whether it had all been worth it. He did not write his philosophy from a place of ease, handing down comfort from above. He wrote it from inside the same difficulty you are in tonight, and everything he found the hard way, by living through exactly the kind of nights you are living through now. And what he found is not a lullaby that pretends the difficulty away. It is something sturdier, a way of turning toward your own existence that does not depend on your existence having been easy or fair or successful. The love of fate, the redemption of the past, the yes that passes through, the full acknowledgement of the no, these are not comforts for the comfortable. They are lifelines for exactly the person who has reason to despair and is looking for a way not to. That is why he still speaks. He is not talking to the lucky. He is talking to the ones lying awake and telling them that even from here, even from the hard place, a great yes is possible. He offers no promise that your life will improve, no guarantee that tomorrow will be brighter, no assurance that the things you regret will somehow come right. He is too honest for that. What he offers is stranger and more durable. The possibility that you could come to love your life as it actually is and has been, without needing it to have been otherwise, that peace does not wait on the far side of some future improvement, but is available now through a transformation not of your circumstances, but of your relationship to them. This is a peace that no misfortune can take away, because it does not depend on fortune at all. That is why, over a century after his silent death, Nietzsche can keep a wakeful stranger company in the dark. He has been where you are. He found in that very place a path toward the yes. And he left the map behind in his difficult and beautiful books, for anyone who might one day lie awake and need it. Tonight you have walked a little way along that map with him. You do not have to reach the end. It is enough to know the path is there, and that it begins exactly where you are, and that a fellow sufferer walked it before you and found at the end of it something worth all the difficulty. Rest now in that company. Chapter 42, A Gentle Practice for the Wakeful Hours. Let us bring all of this down now into something you can actually do, a simple inward practice for nights like this one, drawn from everything Nietzsche taught, offered not as a task, but as a quiet companion for the dark. There is nothing to achieve here. It is only a gentle way of turning the mind. Begin by letting the demon's question come, but softened. Instead of the whole crushing weight of your entire life at once, take just today, this single day, now ending. Move back through it slowly, from this moment toward the morning, and simply notice its contents without judgment. Not to grade the day, not to tally its successes and failures, but only to pass through it again, gently, the way you might walk back through rooms you have already left, turning off the lights. This is a small, eternal return, one day revisited with kindness rather than accusation. As you move back through the day, look especially for the moments you would be willing to live again. They are there even in an ordinary and difficult day. A small kindness given or received. A moment of rest, a taste, a sight, a breath of air, a flicker of connection. Gather these lightly, not clinging to them, just noticing that they existed. That even today, even in this life you sometimes doubt, there were moments you would not mind repeating. This gathering slowly shifts the mind out of its habitual scanning for what went wrong and toward the quiet truth that good was also present. Then, for the harder parts of the day, the frustrations, the failures, the moments you regret, practice the smallest version of "thus I willed it." Not forcing yourself to be glad they happened, but simply releasing the fight against them. They happened, they are over, they are folded now into the day that is ending and the life that is continuing. You do not have to undo them or resolve them tonight. You have only to stop struggling against them, to let them be part of the whole day, which is part of the whole life, which you are learning slowly to affirm. Let each regret go with a quiet. This too was part of my day, and my day is complete. And finally, as the practice ends, let the day itself go. It is finished. It will not return in fact, whatever the philosophers imagine, and it does not need to be carried forward into the night. You lived it, all of it, and now you may set it down, the whole day, blessed and released, and turn towards sleep with empty and open hands. This is the practice. Revisit the day gently, gather what was good, release the fight against what was hard, and then let the whole thing go. It asks nothing but a soft attention, and it turns the wakeful mind little by little from its accusations toward its rest. Chapter 43. Choosing one day to live forever. Here is a way of receiving Nietzsche's great thought that turns it from a burden into something almost sweet, a small imaginative exercise to hold as you drift, requiring no effort, only a soft and drifting attention. Imagine you were allowed to choose a single day from your entire life, one day, to live over and over forever. Not your whole life with all its weight, just one day chosen freely to be your eternity. Move slowly through the years and let the days present themselves. Not the days of great achievement necessarily, but the days of deep contentment, the days when you were simply wholly glad to be alive. A day by water somewhere. A day with someone you loved, doing nothing in particular. A day of quiet work that satisfied you. An ordinary day that happened for no special reason to be suffused with peace. As you consider the candidates, notice what makes a day worthy of being lived forever. It is almost never the days we spent chasing something, striving, proving ourselves, accumulating. It is the days we were present, at rest in our own existence, connected to someone or something, not wanting to be anywhere else. This is a quiet piece of self-knowledge that the exercise gives you for free. It shows you what you actually value once the striving mind is set aside, once the question becomes not what would impress others, but what you would genuinely want to live inside of, endlessly. And here is the tender turn. Such days exist in your life. You can find them if you look, which means your life, whatever else is true of it, has already contained at least one day you would be willing to live forever. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, enormous. It means that your existence, doubt it as you sometimes do, has already produced something of infinite worth, at least one day so good that eternity would be no punishment. Most of us never stop to notice this. We are too busy tallying what went wrong to see that we already hold in our memory days that would make a fine forever. So choose your day gently as you lie here, and let yourself return to it, not with grasping, not with grief that it is past, but with the simple warmth of having lived it. Rest inside that one good day. Let its light fill the dark room, and let it be evidence, quiet and sufficient, that your life has been worth living, that it has held real good, that even the demon's terrible question has hidden inside it this gift, the discovery that somewhere in your one existence is a day you would gladly live forever. Hold that day close and let it carry you down, warm and unhurried, into sleep. Chapter 44. The Yes that Comes Without Force. As we near the end of our long night together, it is worth saying clearly something that has been implied throughout. The yes we have been reaching for cannot be forced, and the attempt to force it only pushes it further away. Like sleep itself, it comes only when we stop straining for it. You cannot command yourself to love your fate the way you might command yourself to complete a task. Love does not obey orders. Not love for a person, and not love for a life. If you lie here tonight, gritting your teeth and demanding of yourself, I will affirm my existence, I will love my fate. Right now, you will only tie yourself in knots, because the demand itself is a form of struggle, and struggle is the opposite of the yielding that the yes requires. The love of fate is not seized, it is allowed. It arrives when it arrives, in moments of surrender, not moments of effort. This is the same paradox that every wakeful person knows about sleep. Sleep cannot be forced. The harder you try to fall asleep, the more the trying keeps you awake, because trying is a form of tension and sleep is the release of tension. And so, with sleep, we learn a strange skill: to stop trying, to let go of the outcome, to simply lie in the dark without demanding anything of ourselves, and to trust that sleep, unforced, will come on its own when we finally cease to chase it. The yes to life works the same way. It comes not when we grasp for it, but when we release our grip on the fight against our existence. So do not strain tonight to feel some grand affirmation. Do not judge yourself if the great yes has not descended upon you, if you still feel doubt or regret or ache. That is all completely fine. The yes is not a feeling you owe yourself tonight. It is a direction you are gently facing, a fight you are slowly laying down, a grip you are gradually loosening. And in the loosening, without any effort at all, small pieces of affirmation drift in on their own, a moment of gratitude here, a flicker of peace there, unbidden, unhurried, the way the first edge of sleep drifts in when you have finally stopped chasing it. Let that be the shape of these last quiet minutes. No striving, no forcing, no demand that you feel or achieve anything. Just the gentle laying down of the long struggle against your own life, the loosening of the grip, the willingness to let whatever comes, come without chasing it. In that surrender, the yes will visit you as it can, in its own measure, and so will sleep, the two of them arriving together, unforced, as you finally stop trying and simply let yourself rest. Let go now. There is nothing left to do. Let it all come on its own. Chapter 45. Letting the question rest. We came into this night with a question, the demon's question, the heaviest weight. Would you live this life again, exactly as it was, forever? We have turned it over and over, looked at it from every side, followed it into the life of the man who found it, and through the strange country of his thought. And now, near the end, it is time to let the question itself rest. Because a question like this is not meant to be answered once and closed. It is meant to be carried lightly through a life, returning now and then to sort your days, to remind you of what you value, to turn you gently back toward the yes whenever you have drifted into the war against your existence. You do not have to answer it tonight. You do not have to answer it ever in a final way. You have only to let it live in you, softly, a quiet companion that keeps asking, in its patient way, whether you are living in a manner you could bless. So let the question grow quiet now. You have done enough with it for one night. You have met it honestly, neither fleeing it nor lying to it. You have seen that its terror hides a gift, that its weight, fully felt, turns into a strange lightness, that the demon in the doorway is, in the end, not a tormentor but a teacher, asking you the one question that could set you free. That is a great deal to have done in the dark. The question can rest now. You can rest now. Let it settle like sediment drifting down through still water, sinking slowly to the bottom, leaving the water above it clear. The question is not gone. It is only resting at the bottom of you, where it will wait, patient as it has always been, ready to rise again some other night when you need it. For now, let the water clear. Let the mind grow still above the settled question. There is nothing more to think tonight, nothing more to resolve, nothing more to do. The question rests, and you may rest with it. Chapter 46. The weight becoming light. Something has been happening, slowly, through all these hours, so gradually you may not have noticed it. The weight you carried into this bed has been changing. It is not gone. Weights like that are rarely gone entirely, but it is different now, lighter, less sharp, less like an accusation, and more like a simple part of the landscape of a life. This is what Nietzsche promised at the very beginning, when he called the eternal recurrence both the heaviest weight and, in the same breath, something that could transform a person. The heaviness and the lightness were never two different things. They were the same thing, met differently. The weight of your life, when you fight it, crushes. The weight of your life, when you cease to fight it and begin, even slightly, to embrace it, becomes something you can carry, and then something you barely feel, and then, in the best moments, something that lifts you rather than pressing you down. The spirit of gravity gives way to the dance. You do not have to have completed that transformation tonight. Almost no one does. It is the work of a life. But you may have felt it begin, a small loosening, a slight lifting, a sense that the things you carried to bed are a little less heavy now than they were a few hours ago. That loosening is real. It is the direction the whole night has been moving in, the slow turn from the war against your life toward the quiet embrace of it, from the no toward the yes, from the crushing weight toward the growing lightness. Feel your body now, how heavy it has become against the bed, sinking, warm, released. And feel, in contrast, how light the mind is growing, how the churning has slowed, how the weight of thought is lifting even as the body grows pleasantly heavy. This is the exchange that sleep makes. The body grows heavy so the mind can grow light, the whole self letting go, sinking and rising at once, held by the dark. The heaviest weight is becoming the lightest thing. Let it. Let the lightness come. Let yourself grow light enough, at last, to drift. Chapter 47. Gratitude in the dark. Near the very end of the night, when there is almost nothing left to say, we come to the simplest and deepest movement of all, the one that lies beneath the love of fate and the yes and the whole long journey we have taken. Gratitude. Not the bright, easy gratitude of a good day, but the quiet, hard-won gratitude that can be found even in the dark, even here, even now. Consider, softly, without straining, the sheer improbability of your existence, that out of the vast reaches of time and the countless things that had to happen exactly as they did, you came to be. That the specific person you are, with this precise history and these particular loves, exists at all, when it is so overwhelmingly more likely that you never would have, whatever the difficulties of your life, and they are real. Beneath them lies this astonishing and unearned fact that you are here, that there is something rather than nothing, that you were given a life at all, this one, yours, the only one there could ever have been. Gratitude does not require that your life have been easy. Nietzsche's gratitude certainly did not depend on that. His life was hard, almost past bearing. Gratitude of this deep kind requires only the recognition that existence itself, whatever its content, is an extraordinary gift, freely given, never owed, and that to have been alive at all, to have felt and loved and suffered and wondered, is more than nothing could ever have offered. This is the gratitude that survives when all the easy reasons for it have fallen away, the gratitude at the very bottom of things for the simple, staggering fact of being. Let a little of that gratitude rise in you now, gently, in the dark, not forced, not demanded, just allowed. Gratitude for this day, now ended, for this body, faithful through everything, for the people you have loved and who have loved you, for the small good moments scattered through your years, for the sheer fact of having been alive at all, of having been given this one strange and difficult and precious existence, and even, if you can, a flicker of gratitude for the hard parts which made you deep, which taught you compassion, which are woven inseparably into the whole life you would, in your best hours, not undo. Let the gratitude be there, quiet in the dark, and let it be the last soft thought before sleep. Chapter 48. The Return to Sleep. And now we come to the end, and there is nothing left to understand, nothing left to reach for, nothing left to do but rest. You have walked a long way tonight, through difficult and beautiful country, in the company of a man who suffered greatly and, from within his suffering, learned to bless his life. You have carried his hardest thought and found it gentler than it seemed. You may lay it all down now. The night has done its work. Let everything we have spoken of dissolve. You do not need to remember it. You do not need to have understood it perfectly. The words were only a river to carry you here, to this quiet shore at the edge of sleep. And now the river has done its carrying, and you may step out of it and rest. Whatever you keep of this night, you will keep without effort, and whatever drifts away was never yours to hold. Let it all go, softly, into the dark. Your body is heavy now, and warm and held. Your breathing has slowed, all on its own, without your asking. The weight you carried in has grown light. The question has settled. The day is released. There is nothing to fight, nothing to solve, nothing to prove, no life to have lived differently, no self you should have become. There is only this: you, here, now, alive, breathing, at rest in the one existence that is yours, that you are learning, slowly, night by night, to love. You would live this life again. Perhaps not yet, perhaps not with your whole heart, but the direction is set, the turn has begun, and it is enough. You have faced the yes and begun, quietly, to move toward it. And the yes, tonight, is very simple. It is the yes of a tired body sinking into rest. It is the yes of letting go. It is the yes of trusting the dark to hold you, as it has always held you, as it holds all living things when the day is done. There is nothing more now. Let the last thoughts fade. Let the breath carry you down. Let the whole of your life, blessed and released, hold you like still water. You are here. You are safe. You are allowed at last to rest. Sleep now.